So the same principles as Tai Chi, really. So just feel the sinking, the streaming down through you, and just feel how erect your spine has to be to get that sinking right. The depression is a heavy head crushing the heart. When we get our posture right, it thrusts the heart upwards and pushes the head back out of the way. So joy is what we feel when the heart is lifting. Sadness is what we feel when the heart is sinking. So the heart can lift or sink for many different reasons. You can get some bad news suddenly and your heart will deflate and you'll feel sad. You can get some really good news and the heart will just lift and you'll be filled with joy. So what we want to be able to do is manufacture our own joy. And that's what meditation is really. It's just sitting with correct posture so that the sinking of gravity reacting to the hard ground beneath you can thrust the heart upwards. That's the miracle of the human spine. It can transform sinking into rising. And then we're not at the mercy of our moods. And that's mindfulness, really. Mindfulness is not simply having your mind present with things, but being able to change your mind, having it in you to transform your mood and your mind and your heart. Okay, now let's just stretch. So just reaching up. I once tried to come up with a term that would describe what it was that I was teaching. And I just came up with spinal hygiene. So it's all working on the spine, really, stretching it, making it loose and limber. And when you work on it, you realize quite quickly that the worst thing for the spine is that heavy head, the head that is thinking to itself. If you think of language, when language was invented and people started using words, they used them purely to communicate to others. And then to offer praises to God. And it must have been quite late when we learned how to talk to ourselves in our heads. But that was the fall from grace. That was Adam's fall when he started thinking to himself. That's what we have to try and break. And then reaching forwards on the horizontal. And now just bring it into the belly rather than the heart. You can bring it into the heart if you want. When we're reaching up with the hands, we're imagining that we're climbing up a rope. And now we're imagining that we're pulling a rope in. Imagine you're hauling in a barge in the canal. So this is how we move in Tai Chi. We pull ourselves along. We don't push ourselves along. Good. And then just bringing it back into prayer. Just try and get into the habit of using this posture to thrust up the heart. That's it. So you have to have quite a horizontal line between the elbows, and then putting pressure on the two palms will rear you back a little bit and push the thymus upwards. That's it. That's it. And the chin pulled in. As soon as we start thinking to ourselves, the head will droop forwards and the heart will drop. We're so used to that feeling because that's how we are all the time. So when we pull the head back and thrust the heart upwards, it feels extreme. But if someone was looking at you from outside, they'd just say, wow, they've got a good posture. So riding horse. So this shape with the legs, like we're grabbing the ground. Imagine you're grabbing something with your arms and wrapping your arms around it and pulling it in. It's the same feeling with the legs. This is what makes it all so difficult, because in one sense, my legs have to be strong and pushing up to stop myself from falling down. But in another sense, my legs are really trying to pull me down towards the ground. So the legs are always working in two ways at the same time. That's what makes it difficult. I'm not just propping myself up from the ground. I'm pulling myself down towards the ground. So these bandy legs. And the arms just mirror the legs. And now just bring the hands down. So one fist over the Dan Chen and the other fist over the Ming Men. Feel the part of the spine beneath the Mingmen hanging down. The tip of the tail trying to probe down into the ground. And feel the part of the spine above the fist rising upwards, rearing upwards. You want to feel as though the legs come up and join the spine at this point. They don't, but we want that feeling. So again, this is the dual aspect of the legs. Part of my legs that's pushing the ground in order to hold me up is driving up the spine. And the part of me that's trying to sink and grab the ground is the bottom part of the spine from the fist down. That's just trying to just get down into the ground. And now let's just move from leg to leg. Feeling the way we move in Tai Chi, which is starting the return by bending the straight leg. So this leg is straightening and then it bends, and it's that starts me going back. Try and feel the bending of the leg. The most obvious place is the knee. So the knee bends, it breaks, and that starts the leg shortening effectively, but also the hip. If I'm careless with the hip, then when I bend my knee, it will pull my hip up like this, and I'll come up out of the supporting leg. So when I bend the knee, I also want to bend here. And so bending that knee will move me then along rather than up. So I send the knee out, but this is as though the hip here moves inwards a little bit, so that my net movement is horizontal and down, not up. Put your fingers in here, in the hip, and bend the knee, but you don't want this part here to move in that direction too soon. So I want my knee to bend. But what that does, because this can't move, it pulls it down. It pulls me down, and then I start moving across. So I'm sinking and then I'm moving in that direction. So I'm sinking. Bend the knee to pull myself down, and then I let myself go with the knee. Just back to, I said, we're just trying to find new ways of killing the legs, because it all depends upon strengthening the legs. It doesn't really. It depends upon your ability to trust, but you have to get damn strong legs to come to that understanding. Because if I can just trust and open up, then the ground comes up and supports me. And then it just doesn't hurt here. It's strange. And now just turning. Just keeping the fists here. So this will just immobilize the shoulders. So now we're having to turn from the legs. We can't just throw the shoulders round. Want to feel both legs separate from each other, but cooperating in order to produce this turn. So this one turn is coming from this action of the two legs. They're the legs of a peasant farmer. Someone that's used to getting down to earth. Rather than using their legs to thrust energy up into their head. And now just bring the feet up a little bit. Now just turning. But still exactly the same from the legs. So in order to change direction, I really have to sink down to generate the power for the return. So I sink to return. I sink to return. And the feeling that your arms are getting left behind, so they're lagging what's happening in your waist and your hips. And they're lagging the shoulders as well. So my shoulders are turning, but my arms are getting left behind, and slowly my arms catch up. It's like I'm winding up a spring and then it just recoils or uncoils. So back to the fists on the Dan Chen Ming Men. Feeling the spine dropping down from here and the spine rearing up from here. Two separate parts joined at this point. And now let's breathe. Feeling those two parts of the spine moving almost independently of each other. Try and keep that feeling of the legs holding the spine at that point. In a sense, that's the design fault, the fact that the legs don't hold the spine there. So we're constantly having to make minor adjustments as we do this exercise, so that the lower part of the spine from the Ming Men down can have the same sort of freedom as the upper part of the spine. So my legs actually hold the sacrum. I want the feeling that they're holding the spine a couple of vertebrae up from the sacrum. It's not very far, but it makes all the difference. Also makes all the difficulty. So when you pull yourself forwards here, the legs have to really pull the spine down. This is the phase where I have to make adjustments. I need to pull my sacrum down with my legs to keep the feeling in the Ming Men. Where my legs are bending to pull my sacrum down. Now bringing the feet up a bit, and now just swaying. A limber spine, lithe. The sort of spine you had when you were a kid. So we need to develop that sort of playful mind that we had when we were younger. Feel the two sides of the spine. One side is contracting, and one side is really lengthening and expanding, and then they switch. Make sure the leg that you're turning into or tipping into is bending to suck down the sacrum. So my tail is being drawn down into this foot, not simply by its own extension, but by my leg bending to tug my sacrum down. We have to get used to using the legs to pull yourself down towards the ground rather than simply using the leg to stop yourself from falling down. So my leg is bending here as much as it's straightening. Two different parts of my mind. Again, active and passive. The part of me that's trying to stop myself from falling is passive, but there's an active part that's really trying to bend the leg and get down into the ground with my tail and my hand here. Now back to riding horse. Feel the shoulders packing down into the hips. So heavy elbows, dragging your shoulders down. Feel your legs, your sacrum, and the soles of your feet really relaxing and allowing the hips to feel as though they're sinking down into your feet. And now, let's try a little bit of the full and empty. Bringing the weight into the foot and feeling that filling of the leg coming up from the ground. And try and get the filling coming all the way to the heart. So as I put my weight into the leg, my heart fills and lifts. Feel the leg straightening and then bending. Straightening and bending. If I don't get that going in the empty leg, then as I fill the empty leg, the energy won't come up from the ground. If I'm pushing myself from the full leg and just simply landing on the empty leg, then the empty leg will have to get tense to stop me from falling. And that will block the energy. So I just bend the leg and I just have to cultivate this feeling of something rising up me, because it won't happen by itself, largely because we're just so tense. And I want to feel that bending. It's a breaking, something in me breaks emotionally, something almost starts to cry. And it's that beckons, it beckons the ground up. So my straightening of the leg primes the leg ready to bend, but it also flushes the leg out so that it can fill then from the ground. If the leg is holding on to tension, then it's just congested already and not much can happen. So I straighten the leg. So a real sense that something has just extended right out of the leg, and then I can bend it to bring fresh energy up from the ground. And now let's try the other foot forwards. But now the same thing, but using it to get the cross energy. So bringing the energy that's rising up the leg into the opposite side of the body. So now there's a direct energetic connection between my foot here, my front foot, and my backhand. And then I drop the backhand, draw the energy up the back leg as I bring the weight into it, and direct it into the front hand. So this is very much John's Tai Chi. He talked about cross energy all the time, but very few Tai Chi masters do. But this runs throughout the form. Every posture in the form is pure cross energy. And you have to feel it as such, otherwise your Tai Chi won't develop. Your mind won't clarify. So I have to see this connection. Just relax the foot, relax the leg so that the energy can surge up into the hand. It's important not to push yourself. If I push myself with this leg, then I'm leaving this leg. But this leg is having to get tense so that it can get ready to support me. And that's like a barrier between me and the ground. I want the feeling that this leg is pulling me. This back leg is pulling me back. And then the energy can just bubble up from the ground. So the other way, if I'm pushing, then I'm sinking into this leg. This leg becomes a bit like a spring, and then I can bound out of it. So there is energy coming up, but it's just that recoiling spring energy. It's not really earth energy. It's just me bouncing against the ground. I've just made my leg springy. So here I want the leg to be empty, so that when I come into it, energy can come up into the opposite hand. So it's quite a different way of using the mind with the body. So the Chinese have, their sort of Tai Chi type energy, that what they call internal energy, they call Jing. So this sort of whippy, bouncy, springy energy that comes from the legs and the waist. It's not so much that, because that's still something that you're using to have an effect. It can be used aggressively, unpleasantly, just as much as physical force can. Here, I want something that's going to be a spiritual work. It's something that's going to cleanse me of my badness and just make me a better person. And so for that, I just really have to see, and I have to work with the heart. The heart beckons this energy up and directs it into the opposite hand. So you have to have a taste for this way of working. So something in you has to know that it's right and that it's worthwhile, because there's not much to be gained from it other than your own internal development. You don't have anything to show for it to others. If you're developing your Jing, then you can throw people around till the cows come home and everyone will think you're amazing. Whereas this is all heart, this. Those that can see will see it. So those that have the heart to see will see the development of your heart, but not many have that, unfortunately. And now riding horse again. Let's just stand like this for a sec, just to establish this point. Feeling this point as the middle of the figure of 8. I don't want that point to move too much from side to side. The more stable and still I can keep it, the less energy I will leak when I work. So I'm purely turning here as much as I can and just visualizing this figure of 8. It's coming into the Danchen here and coming out of the Min Meng here. Danchen is always the entry point. Ming Men is also always the exit point. And again, I'm just keep it going and just relax. Keep my mind with it. I trust that it's important and that it's worthwhile and that there's some truth in what I'm doing. That has to be our guiding light, not pleasure or the avoidance of pain, but the truth. This just feels so true. And it's that that keeps me going, and it's that that keeps my mind on it. My mind stays on it, not because it's interesting, but because that's where the mind belongs. The mind belongs with the truth. Like someone, I was reading a book and they said, the only choice we have really is whether to choose the self mind or the God mind. So God and truth, he just equated, said they're just synonyms for the same thing. And so the mind, the part of your mind that is just seeks truth, the questing part of your mind, rather than the mind that's constantly thinking about itself and reinforcing its sense of self, reinforcing its own separateness from the world, this illusion of an identity, of an individuality. There's part of me that's finite, which is that self-mind, and there's part of me that's infinite, which is this connection to the truth. That's the part I must choose. And that is God, and that is heaven. Now let's just turn it into waving hands in the clouds. So the hand that's going behind, just let it roll up on top. All the time I'm trying to keep my legs relaxing, trying to feel the bending aspect of my leg that's trying to get down and hug the ground. And now let's try just a little bit of stepping. The same exercise, let's just start with the figure of 8, but with 1 foot forward. So looping around the feet. So you have to move backwards and forwards a little bit, but you don't have to move very much. Visualizing this energy looping around the foot and then looping around this foot. And then just using it to step. So as I loop around this right foot, it releases the left, and then I can step and go around that. But this is the simplest stepping, really, using the figure of 8. So when you're walking, just try and feel this lilt. Almost like you're rocking yourself to sleep. As I come around the filling foot, I feel that as like a spread. The foot is spreading on the ground in order to increase its area so that make me more stable when I lift the other foot up. And that's a sense of sort of sinking with a smile. I'm sinking down and relaxing into the leg. I'm not moving into the leg and then tensing the leg to give me some pretend stability. I'm just sinking, and that lifts this leg up, and then I can step with it. So my sinking has to be a relaxation, but it also has to be an activity. So in a sense of tension, something is pulling me down, not just gravity. It's my own desire, really, my own desire for the truth of connection, the truth of this connection with the ground. When I really get it well, then something comes up from the ground. My faith releases energy from the ground. My trust, faith, and belief, they're all the same thing, really. All those grand words, awareness, consciousness, trust, faith, giving, presencing, becoming present. They're all just synonyms for love. Now, just a little bit with the other foot. So this is earth work, groundwork. My work with the ground, my ability to trust it and relax into it, is what releases the unearthly, the extraterrestrial. And that's all the realm of the heart. So I need to work with the earth. Otherwise, the heart won't properly open. It will just open when you feel something strongly. I want it to be open all the time, in the sense that I'm communicating on a subliminal level with the extraterrestrial. Not the sense of aliens from outer space, but just the sense of other dimensions of the reality that we exist in. The angelic, if you like. Let's just pump a little bit. But neither heel really touches the ground, not for support anyway. Like, the way you knead dough, bread dough, in order to make it springy. It's the sense here is that I'm working the ground in order to make the ground somehow springy, less like a solid object, more like something that can return energy. And then I want to feel that energy that's returning from the ground, coming up into the heart. I'm making the heart buoyant. Calm it down, but it's still there. You can bring weight into the heels, but there's a sense that they're always about to peel off the ground. And also a sense of the figure of 8 inside the foot. So the weight is moving around the foot. Whichever part of the foot it's in, there's a different feeling. So I'm going through real sort of emotional range simply by being present on my feet if I allow movement into myself. It's not simply a body that's moving, it's a body that contains movement.